Hi, I'm Martin from Rhenso, and today I would like to show you how I turn a grasshopper definition into an adaptive part. To keep this tutorial short, I already set up a grasshopper file. You can find the link in the description of this video. This grasshopper definition creates a panel with a hole pattern based on the location of a curve. I will now show you how to turn it into an adaptive part. Let's have a quick look at the definition first. This definition is set up like most other definitions. On the left side, you have the inputs. On the right side, you have the geometry you would like to later bake. To turn this into an adaptive part, you will have to add a few components to this document. The first thing I'm going to do is add an input component to the document and connect one of these sliders to it. In this case, I'll take the thickness slider. The second thing I'm going to do is add the bake component and connect the final geometry to it. We now have set up the minimal requirements to create an adaptive part. All you have to do now is right-click on the component, choose a layer, and the adaptive part has been added to the document. You can now update the thickness of the element by moving the sliders back and forth. This, of course, is not our final result. It's missing a lot of very important inputs, so I'm just going to delete this and go back to Grasshopper to edit the definition a little bit more. Let's take a closer look at the input component. The input option can connect to all kinds of parameter types. You can connect multiple inputs to one component. The name option defines what you see in the UI panel. In case of sliders, it just takes whatever you have written here. So in this case, it would be thickness and offset. Let me add a few more inputs to the document. I'll start with adding one for the dimensions. And another one for the resolution. I'm not putting them all into one to keep a little bit more of clarity in the document. Another one for the input, geometric input of the curve. I'll call this stroke and connect it to the named component, and then we have another one over here for the stroke width. So let's see what happens if I bake this again. So let's close Grasshopper for a second and take a look at the result. So this is the option that we now created. You can see they're called thickness, offset, width, height, and so on. Stroke here for the geometric input. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So you can change these things now and see the update right away. But what you can see as well is that this is a little unstructured, and would be nice to maybe have these groups that to structure the input to make it more visible to the user. So I'll show you now how to do this. So I'll start Grasshopper up again, and we can zoom into the area of the inputs, and there's this option that's called category. And if you put something into a category, it will basically group up things. So in case of the dimensions, I would just add the word dimensions to the input category, and down here in stroke, I would also put it into the stroke category, as well as the stroke width, which also belongs to that. So I'll put this in here as well. And did I miss anything? Yeah, the resolution also maybe belongs to the category of stroke. Yes, and thickness and offset also belongs to the category dimensions. So now let's rebake this thing and see what happens again. So this leads me to the only two remaining options on the input component, anchored to multiple. They both only apply to geometric input, so that's why I zoomed into this curve area of the document. Usually, if an adaptive part is moved, the input geometry is internalized and moved along. So moving an adaptive part does not change it. If the anchored option is set to true, the input geometry will not be moved along, so moving the block will update the geometry. Let me show you how this works. So I'll add a Boolean toggle. This and set this to true. And if I rebake this component now, you should see the difference right away. So I'll close down Grasshopper again. So this number 7 is the new one that we created. So if I move this, you can see that the stroke is actually updating. Whereas if I move this element where the option was set to false, if I move it, it just stays the way it is. So these are the two options. Which one you need depends on the definition and what you're trying to do with it. So this is what the anchored option is all about. Let's go back to Grasshopper. So far, I mainly talked about the input components, but there's also a lot of options available for the bake component. So first of all, it also says name here, so we can actually rename this and call it panel, for example. So we will override the name of the block that is going to be created. And there's also another option in the adaptive parts here that says ape attributes, and here, and then there is ape object definition. So instead of actually putting the final geometry directly in here, we can first apply a few attributes to it and then add it to the bake component. So, and let's see what we can do here. So one of them would be changing the color of the element. So we could go ahead and say, okay, I would like the colors to be defined not from layer, but from the object. And then here I would be able to set the object color. So I'm just going to add any color I want. Let's turn it into something blue. There we go. And now if I bake, the objects that come out will be in this color. I also can put a color as an input, so I'll just add this as well. There we go. And yeah, let's rebake and see what happened. Let's close Grasshopper again and select the panel. It's called panel because I named it panel in the options. And you can see now there's this new option in here. It's not in any category, that's why it's on top. And you can change the color of this element now if you want. There you go. So I think I'm pretty much done here. I hope you got a better idea on how to create adaptive parts with Grasshopper. Thanks for watching.